What's up, everyone? Garage 79R. You can see we got Dustin's turbo Paseo convertible in the garage. I drove it home today and I actually just got back from doing a round of testing and laptop tuning and whatnot. And so far, it's still running pretty good. Oh, wow, the bugs. The bugs were on the windshield, but wow. So it's driving pretty good, but I'm still struggling with a spark blowout. I've already gapped the plugs down a little bit today. And I'm not running atrocious amounts of boost. It'll spike around 8-9 now and then level out about 7 pounds of boost, which is way safe for this thick rod bottom end. We could definitely go run a little higher, but I'm not trying to just melt it down just yet. So just trying to put in some time on the car. So it didn't go to the Dragon. And because of a dumb reason, but it was probably for the best, because I think I wouldn't have enjoyed the Dragon, because I would have just been constantly worried about this car and probably tweaking it, because it really wasn't 100%. So got it running. So I think the last video I diagnosed what happened to the replacement motor, this is the motor out of the four-door. It did break an exhaust valve. I posted a picture of it. Don't know why. It was an old motor. It could have been weak, and I could have just finished it off once I started making some jam. Whatever. I've never broken a valve before, so I think it's just because it was old and well used. So this has got the head off of Earl's second motor, which is actually a motor that Dustin sent down to Maryland from Canada for me, because I was short on motors and I needed a motor for Earl. So I gave him his head back. I don't know, it's kind of goofy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a known good head. It's got valve. I've already done the valve seals in it. So motor-wise, this thing's fantastic. It runs cool. If it gets a little warm from going up hills, it comes right back down and recovers as it should. So motor is solid. Turbo seems solid. However, I think the turbo is blowing a little bit of oil. So we might have to consider getting another center housing rotating assembly, CHRA, because I noticed some oil in the pipes the last time I had it apart. But right now it's knick-knack stuff. I'm still blowing spark out. I gapped the plugs down today, and still almost like a button on most pulls, about 5,500, it just blows the spark out. So, and then it loads up because it blew the spark up, and then it carries on for about a minute, then they clear up. So the plugs already gapped down pretty well. I don't really want to go a whole lot tighter. I think it does need more ignition power. These coils aren't the greatest. I've gone a little bit further with the stock coils, but I think it's also combating some of that oil. So it's just, everything's kind of raining on it. We had talked about doing the same thing to this as I did to Earl's, put the Audi coils on it and go full sequential, and I think we're still going to do that. And I think it'll help it run just overall. And like when I made the switch on that car, it just overall just ran so much nicer. It didn't run bad, but it's like, I don't know, it just had more refinement. So I think we're still going to do that to this car, because he's not coming for it for a couple months now. And he didn't take it home. We had it running. Oh yeah, I snowballed from the original story. So it didn't go down to Dragon. I had it running that Wednesday. Went out Thursday to try to cram 3 weeks of tuning in 3 hours. In the process of doing logs and analyzing and all this stuff, when I was flipping between maps, somehow a base fuel setting essentially got doubled, and I never realized that. Every once in a while, when I'm flipping through things, like if I did a recent change, like I had it tonight, messing with the boost control, and I'll do a revision on that, sometimes the boost control doesn't carry over for some reason. And that I expect, because I've had that happen with the gray car. But I've never had a base setting that you start the whole thing with, like that's the first thing you set, get changed. It went to, I don't know if it's the default setting or whatever, but essentially it's the fuel requirement. If you ever use Tuner Studio, you're probably laughing at me right now, but it's the fuel requirement setting, and it's a base calculation for how much fuel to inject in the motor, given the motor size and the injector size. So it has 295 Starlet injectors in it, and it's a 1.5. So that calculation, it should be like 8 point something, 8.4, 8.5. Somehow, during that round of testing and tuning and whatever, Thursday, that number went up to 17 point something. And I couldn't catch it. The car had stalled, it had loaded up, it was blowing out plugs, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like I spent a few hours on the side of the road trying to get this thing to light and go. At this point, I was ready to set it on fire. And we all had that frustration at some point. And so I sent the tune I drove to the spot with, and the tune I was trying to drive away with, to Chris, one of the guys, I guess the owners of Speedy EFI. I'm like, hey, look, I'm going on this trip. I'm pulling my hair out. I don't know what's going on. Can you take a look at this? Obviously, the car's not going. The car's left dead on the side of the road. I actually ended up later on after that. It was near a buddy's house, and we towed it to his house so he can chill out for the weekend. So I get a message back later that weekend, and he's like, "Hey, why is your fuel setting, number so high? That's like the highest number I've ever seen." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, it's like 17, whatever." And I was like, "Huh? I thought it was like 8 or 9 when I set it." He's like, "Well, I'm showing 17 here." So I was like, "All right, well, when we get back, we'll check it." So Monday, me and Dustin get to the car. I hooked the laptop up, and sure as shit, the number was 17.4, whatever it was. Redid the calculation. It was like 8.5, again, whatever it was, 8.4, 8.5. Fired right up, and he drove it back to the shop. We did an oil change, because then at that point, the oil was so contaminated with fuel. And, we changed spark plugs again. I put a fresh set. I went through a couple old sets just trying to get the thing to fire and go. And, sorry, I'm pacing because I'm animated. And we drove it around and kept working on the tune. But I was having a weird ignition cutout issue, and I actually make the tach cut out too. I'm pretty sure I narrowed that down to having the trigger filter on weak. There's 3 settings: weak, medium, and strong. And at one point I was trying something, so I set it on weak. And I'm thinking that's what it was, because I turned that off, and I haven't had that issue again. The tach works cleanly. I don't have this cutout issue. I only have a blowout issue. So we're getting there, but it's fun actually. The car's it's fun to drive with the top down, and it pops and bangs a little bit, mainly because of the waste spark. I actually have a whole bunch of timing in it when you let off, and it still pops and bangs, and it's just because of the nature of the beast. So I also made detonation earmuffs. Come around here. So the car looks extra goofy because I got this hanging out the side. You ain't gonna see it, but I have a pipe bolted to the side of the engine block, and then this hose is attached to it, and it's run into a set of earmuffs, and the foam is out of it. I don't know if it's because the way the tube is routed. A little hard to hear if you're not paying attention. You kind of have to listen. But you will hear detonation. It sounds like rocks in a can or whatnot. And I had uploaded a spicier tune on the car with a few more degrees of timing across all the boost numbers. And the funny thing is, I had no detonation. I thought for sure I was going to have something somewhere. So it had a weird detonation spot. It was like 3,200 RPM, part throttle, part boost, or low boost. A couple pounds of boost, and so I pulled a few degrees out of there, and it has seemed to gone away. So I wouldn't have known that, because the car wasn't necessarily running rough. Like, it still felt like it was driving all right, but it was, it was rocks in the can. So I was like, oh, so kind of pulled a few degrees out of that whole chunk of blocks there, or cells, and it seems to work so far. So we're making progress. I'm driving it back tomorrow. I think it seems like people always smile and look at it I don't know if they really understand what's fully going on with this car, but they're like, hey, it's a shitbox Paseo convertible making some noises. So, but yeah, so I guess this is part 7, and progress is being made, But now it's not on time crunch. I can relax. I can sweat the details a little bit more. And oh, heh, because of the more timing, it's making a little more torque, and we're finding that this clutch is not as strong as it should be. It's a old center force clutch, but it doesn't have the weights. So it must be like a very mild street disc, and it has a very light pedal. So that's probably the only next major thing, along with going to the Audi coils, is putting a heavier clutch in it. I didn't have an issue tonight, but earlier today I had it slip a couple times on the onset of boost. It was actually cool. On one of the logs, you can see the RPM go woo. So, anyway, hope you all doing well, and I'll see you on the next one.